Anatta in its theoretical aspect. Presentation. Here is the most abstruse, perfect and at the same time subtlest doctrine ever to have been expounded throughout mankind's history. Its special feature is rooted in the fact that it can only be taught, explored, taught, revealed and expounded by an omniscient Buddha, a Tathagata, that is to say a perfect being. It all happened 25 centuries ago, when, by renouncing the world, sensuous pleasures, any ambition or project, the Prince Siddhartha had been engrossed in various practices and spiritual exercises. Being always dissatisfied about the results they produced, he had an experience, reached a complete realization, and in the wake of this attainment, taught that new doctrine, unheard of before and which is taught nowhere. It is essential to well understand that the doctrine of Anatta, as it is taught and expounded in what we call Theravada, is totally unknown in any other system of thought or exegesis whatsoever, including the modern and so-called speculative Buddhism, also called Mahayana Buddhism. From the very beginning, the monk Gautama, the awakened one, whom we call Buddha, has discovered this principle. He has discovered something entirely new in the course of evolution of all the spiritual traditions of humanity. He will display this discovery under the name Anatta. It is essential that each of us, according to his or her own skills, at least succeeds in achieving a basic and accessible understanding of Anatta. Only the ones who achieved complete realization, who reached arahanthood, that is to say complete awakening, master a very wide, complete and subtle capacity of reflection and investigation into this doctrine. The ones who have not reached this stage yet, can but have an incomplete and truncated understanding, their investigation skills being more limited. As to the ones who never saw Nibbana during their living, they won't be able to correctly and effectively understand this doctrine. However, someone well versed into the scriptures, who is a very learned scholar, whom intellectual faculties have sufficiently developed, will be able to overview a fairly good idea about this thing, or we could say not too bad. Anatta is a Pali word, and not a Sanskrit word, which has absolutely nothing in common with its Sanskrit equivalent Anatman. If Buddha refused to make use of the Sanskrit language, if he chose to use his native dialect called Magadha, there was a reason backing it. Buddha is someone who claimed having reached omniscience, that is to say the capacity to know all in all, being particularly strengthened by this omniscience, as claimed by him, but at the depth how can we be sure that it is true? He made some choices, concerning as much what he endeavored to avoid as what he wished to cultivate. The Pali dialect. One of the 5 required conditions for a Tathagata, a Buddha, to appear in this world is that he appears in a specific area of what, in present-day India, we call Majhimadsa, which means the central land, the land of the middle, as it is geographically located at a medium distance between the coastal areas, the mountains and the forests. It more or less constitutes the heart of the Indian peninsula. Also, in this specific area, the Magadha dialect is being utilized. Later on, owing to the simple fact that Buddha's words have been put into written script that became canonized, we will use the word Pali, conveniently rendered into English by the word canon, to refer to this dialect. We have therefore replaced the word Magadha by the word Pali. In Pali, The literal meaning of the word anatta is divided into two parts described as follows. A, which is the privative particle, and atta, which is the reflexive particle, translated into English by means self. Buddha didn't use technical words. He refused to use Sanskrit words that refer to spiritual techniques, religious or mystic beliefs. He instead used words of everyday life, specifically used by the Magadha people. In Pali language, we indeed cannot find any specific vocabulary related to philosophical or religious teachings, ideas or concepts. As soon as one wished to teach such things, one had to use Sanskrit language. It is worthy of quotation that Sanskrit and Pali are very close to each other, but not necessarily identical. The translation of the word anatta. Anatta is therefore the conjunction of two particles, the privative particle and the particle designating the idea of reflexivity, of reciprocity. In English, we are compelled to use a word like not self or non-self because British have, in their vocabulary, a word designating the reflexive particle that is self. That's why British have legitimately translated the word anatta by not self or non-self. We can however claim that in Sanskrit language, the word anatman can indeed convey the idea of absence of a self, absence of a soul, absence of an ego. But we deal with the Sanskrit word anatman and not with the Pali one anatta. The absence of in itself. Anatta, that is the absence of in itself, applicable to everything, every idea, every characteristic and virtually all mental or material phenomena. From this starting point, we can, naturally, give details and explanations so as to understand that in such and such cases, such and such field, in this manner, should the Anatta doctrine be expressed or perceived. The standard description that you probably already heard of lies, for instance, in saying, let's take a cart. This cart undergoes the law of Anatta. We cannot claim that a cart exists in a true sense. Indeed, if we take it to pieces and we spread it out on the ground, we can no longer claim that this is a cart. However, all its pieces are spread before us. Here is outlined a quite superficial and easy way to try to make you understand the concept of anatta. But it yields the disadvantage to stand firm on this idea of absence of substance, seed or soul. And still, it is interesting to ascertain that when we ask this question to Buddha himself, and it is essential to find out what he himself expounded as being anatta, this latter didn't mention the cart's example. He was not the one who took this example. One of his disciples took this example in order to make himself understood by someone. We also sometimes take the example of a cow butchered into pieces on the butcher's block. When Buddha explains anatta, when Buddha expounds what he conceives to be endowed with this character of absence of in itself, absence of self-inherent reality, he chooses a different and, we could have guessed so, remarkably effective option. He tells, there is no atta in this body, because if, in this body, there was a atta, at this very moment, atta may have this power to decide or to choose that this body should assume this shape or shouldn't. We can trace back this demonstration in numerous suttas. Throughout his lifespan, he very often used this method in order to make his talks understood. Here is the way he carries out. Someone is convinced that in this body is seated a substance, a seed, an entity, or that in all cases this body and this mind are the emanation of an immutable, unconditioned and eternal principle. Buddha tells this fellow, is that body motionless, immutable, or does it undergo changes? It undergoes changes, old age, illness, decay, etc. Lord, that which undergoes changes, is it a source of pleasure or a source of dissatisfaction? That which undergoes changes is a source of dissatisfaction, Lord. How can a source of dissatisfaction be considered as our property? One must be crazy to keep held in hand the burning coal, which is a source of intense pain. One would be silly to keep this body, source of transformations and dissatisfactions. Here is the specific point that Buddha, in his demonstration about Anatta, focused on. That is the idea of total absence of control. That is not only the idea that there is neither a owner, nor an entity. That is also the idea of absence of control, as Anatta suggests the total absence of control or mastery. For example, we would like to put an end to the aging process. We would like to keep a young, dynamic, flexible and, in every possible way, beautiful and attractive body. However, there is an uncontrollable and natural aging process taking place. There is no means at all to control that, not only because there is no one, no individual, no ego, but also because it's impossible to control that. It is explained by the simple fact that in this material body, there is no inner regent that controls its material constitution. Neither is there any self-control, nor is found a self-controlling agent. Matter cannot control itself. The same process is applicable to mental phenomena, as these latter cannot control matter and matter cannot control these former either. Here is fathomed out the somehow theoretical aspect of it. Let's try to figure it out in a more practical way, which befits daily life's realities. Anatta in its practical aspect. I clothe myself. I eat. Take a moment to think about what is really I. Usually, we enjoy to wear clothes that are as beautiful and handsome as possible, convenient in all respects, noticeably to reach our professional aim. We will therefore make efforts to look handsome, especially when we go to work. We think, we conceive. I clothe myself : I have chosen these clothes because I like this color, that shape. I prefer trousers rather than skirts. But in reality, what is this all about? In reality, as a matter of fact, it is inconceivable to go to work naked, even in a hot country, because, being naked, we fall prey to the aggressions of the insects, and moreover, in particular in our Western civilization, of other people's opinion. Indeed, no other choice is ever left to us. This is ineluctable, necessary and compulsory to wear clothes. Here is the starting point. This idea of the ineluctable character of things is what Anatta implies. From this point onward, we can dream up, we can extrapolate. We can try to make handsome, pleasant clothes and devote ourselves to a style by wearing them. We can work out some philosophical discourses about the social and sociological finality of clothes. At the beginning, it all starts with a basic need to cover up the body with some material.